When did you move to Canberra?
Well, after the First World War ended, my father was sent from the Melbourne office, which in Melbourne, of course, was the capital of Australia, and in my father's lifetime. And he was with the Commonwealth Crown Solicitor's Office, part of the Attorney General, and he was sent to Sydney after the end of the war to take over the leadership of the Sydney office of the Crown Solicitor. As Gough was born at the worst time of the First World War, his uncle was killed at Fromell just after Gough was born, and his my mother's grandmother died just after he was born.
Oh, wow.
Although she was devoted to her grandmother, so Gough came at a sad time for the family.
Oh, can you tell me what it was like to grow up in the family?
Well, my father was an idea that he brought us up to be aware that we were helping create a national capital. So we were always aware that it was a privilege to be in Canberra in its growing stages.
Can you tell me how you ended up being a school teacher?
That's all I ever wanted to be, was a teacher. Gough would have been a good teacher too.
What was your influence behind being a school teacher?
We loved books. We loved knowing things and sharing our knowledge.
Did you have to do much study to be the teacher, or did you just slide straight into it?
I just followed on.
You were the first Australian woman to study at Yale University, is that correct?
I was the first Australian woman to be at Yale.
How did that feel when you found that out?
Oh, I felt privileged, I guess. It was a wonderful experience being at Yale.
And that would be a major inspiration for a lot of other women as well, trying to study and learn and teach and everything else.
I don't know about that, but it was a wonderful place to be. We were only about an hour from New York. So you could pop down and hear W.H. Auden reading his poetry in New York and then go back that night.
Was it difficult at all from the different cultural stances from Australia to the US?
Not really.
Was life simpler back then?
Well, to help to talk English as a native language.
What is the most special thing that you can remember about living in Canberra outside of the politics?
It was windy and it was dusty. Everything was underground, so everywhere you went there were ditches, electric lines and telephone lines and sewerage. One Sunday evening, my uncle, who lived with us, my father's younger brother, he would decide to go to St John's Church for Evensong. And it was about 3 miles over across the country. And so we walked across country and fell into 3 ditches on the way because there were no streetlights when we first went there.
Did you stay in one suburb at all, or did you move around in different suburbs?
We were always round Forest. That was where the senior public servants lived.
What influences did Gough have earlier in his life? What do you know, if anything, inspired him to be in politics?
Well, he went into politics because when he went into the Air Force, he became aware of the opportunities, I suppose, in politics. Now, he joined the Labor Party while he was in the Air Force.
Did you have an itch at all to become part of politics as well, or did you just...
No, it was for men.
So you just thought, no, I'll let Gough handle that.
I never thought of it. And my father had no politics because he was a public servant, and we didn't have a vote in Canberra for years, so that we didn't talk politics. We talked international affairs, and newspapers were the important thing. We used to have the Canberra Times, the Melbourne. Uncle George took the Melbourne Herald. My father took the Sydney Morning Herald. So there were the 3 newspapers every day in the house.
How close-knit was the family to each other?
Well, we were great readers, all of us. And my father, when he got entered the public service at 16, the 1890s had been very difficult in Australia with droughts and strikes, and so any job was worthwhile. So when the Commonwealth Public Service came on the air, they were needing people to be public servants, Commonwealth public servants. My father left school and into the public service, and every payday he bought himself a book. So we had a good library, a very good library, and we were great readers. But the evening dinner table was very stirring because everybody was talking and discussing, and that was the time we most socialised over dinner. And I didn't have much to say because I was the youngest. My uncle and my father and my brother were great talkers. We discussed everything. So we were very aware of the world as a whole. I was mostly a listener.
So you sat there and just
listened? I was the little one. I remember a lot of discussion about the pronunciation of words, and the meaning of words, and where it got, if any doubt, reached back and got the dictionary and consulted it at the table. So we were always very conscious of language.
A wordsmith. He would be a wordsmith.
Yes, words mattered.
Can you tell me what life was like when Gough toppled 23 years of Liberal ruling government?
Well, we didn't talk party politics much because we had there was no vote in Canberra. And anyway, my father was in the public service and you had to be loyal to the government of the day. So we didn't really talk about party politics. We talk about the wider implications of politics, but not the minutiae of party politics.
So what happened at work stayed at work when...
I don't know how my father voted when we did get the vote.
Well, whenever there was a report on something which he initiated or anything else, did you have any disagreements? Did you think, oh, no, that's silly, but did you let him know, or did you just keep that to yourself?
I suppose I thought that Gough and my father knew anyway. Whatever they thought and said was right.
Okay, that's fair enough. I fully understand that.
I believed them and believed in them. One thing you mightn't be aware of, our father was very involved with the future. He always had endless patience, and he was very interested in settling in Canberra, becoming a city and a university city. Very involved with all the plans for bringing a university to Canberra because we had a university college associated with Melbourne. My father was one of the most influential people in getting it started. So they did Melbourne degrees and Melbourne courses.
Wow!
Because he believed that the public servants should have the opportunity to do university study.
Yeah, that's where the HECS things would come in. That's where, when he created Medicare, HECS,
yes.
Modern Family Law. That was so. When that happened, that was inspired by your father. Was that correct?
Yes, I suppose so in a way. But we're very conscious of education. My father believed in education. There's never any doubt that I would go to university at a time when not many girls did.
Were you always supporting Gough's ways while he was Prime Minister, or did you go against the grain?
Well, I was, in my job, I was surrounded by Liberals, so I had no part in his political life.
So you kept to yourself in a way. So he did his thing.
Well, I was fully involved in my own life.
So you kept your private life separate from your work.
Well, I was at a school that expected that of me.
What do you think Gough or the Whitlam name should be remembered for?
All the achievements of his time in office.
Is there any of them that...
They did so much. A lot of the things... I mean, when he went overseas, he took selected public servants, so that gradually, each time mostly took the new ones. And in his time, the senior public servants all had a chance to go abroad with him. Little things like that, I think, are important.
So he did the hard yards and...
When he travelled overseas by plane, there'd be public servants there who have often, for the first time, had a chance to talk to him personally.
So he would talk one-on-one with the people.
Yes, and with the press who travelled in the plane at the other end. When Menzies went overseas, he went to cricket matches, but Gough went to notable museums and notable buildings, and he took the crowd with him. Whenever he went, well, I know most because I went with him to India, and the Indians went out of their way to supply experts to take him to notable places, and the whole group went too. It was an educational experience in every way. There are things that people don't know about Gough. I was with them when we were in Rome one time, and the Vatican gave us a young priest to show us round, an Australian, and Gough got his parents' address, and he wrote to his parents telling them how much the party had appreciated their son's help. You don't hear about that sort of thing about Gough. He did all sorts of personal things like that. He kept in touch with so many people. He was always on the lookout for young men who were potential members of the Labour Party. So that Bob Hawke had some very good people that Gough had actually chosen and inspired. I don't know if I've got anything to add except I'm very proud of Gough. I'm very proud to be related to him.